The perfect marriage collapsed when I found out that my wife had been having an affair for a year. My wife and I got married when we were 25, and now we're 38. We met in college, got married, and everything was great. We both graduated, got good jobs, and started a life together. Both earned well, so there were no problems with money. My wife worked in her father's small business, and I worked in a large company. A few years later, my boss suddenly left the company, and it was necessary for someone to take his place. The only one who knew how to run the department was me. So I got a huge salary increase, bonuses, benefits, in general, the full package. At the age of 28, I earned about 3 times as much as my wife. In the same year, she gave birth to our first daughter, and 2 years later, the second. A wife working for her father could have a more flexible work schedule. But about 5 years ago, my father-in-law died unexpectedly. This left the mother-in-law and his wife with a difficult choice: sell the company or run it themselves. My mother-in-law had no idea how to run a business, so my wife decided to take matters into her own hands. After she took over the company, she continued to work as successfully as and her father. Accordingly, her income increased dramatically and became more than mine. I was proud of her switch from an ordinary employee to managing an entire company. It's not easy and worthy of respect. However, our daughters began to suffer from the fact that their parents were almost never at home. My wife and I discussed which of us would stay with them. She said, "The company where you work can handle it without you, but mine could fall apart." I agreed, quit, and became a homemaker. I do everything. I take care of the girls, cook, clean, fix things, run errands, whatever you need. I meet my wife from work, surrounding her, caring. Everything was fine until about a year ago, something changed. My wife used to really appreciate my care, but suddenly she became angry, saying things like, "Are you doing anything at all? Or maybe you can go work." Although I was already working, I gave up my career to raise children, keep the house in order, and take care of my wife, who, by the way, has always been very sexy. She stopped taking the initiative in intimacy, and when I suggested it, she refused, saying they were in the mood. It was weird. In the end, I stopped trying. I thought it was because of the pandemic and everything else. Stress. I tried to make her happy, but nothing worked. Our eldest daughter had a softball game last week. I got everything ready, and we went. During the game, I decided to record a video for my parents. Since they live in another state and rarely see their granddaughters, I forgot my phone, so I asked my wife for it. She hadn't let it out of her hands all day, so I thought it would do her good to take a break from the screen. She handed me the phone and went to get drinks and snacks. While I was filming my daughter, I received a notification in an application. I opened it and couldn't believe what I saw. Wife. She corresponded with a guy from work who is 8 years younger than her. They sent each other explicit photos and videos, discussed how they felt good in bed, and then they started talking about me. He wrote that I was some kind of weakling who couldn't find a proper job and provide for his family, and she agreed with his wife. I couldn't believe this nonsense. He was both crushed and enraged. I heard my wife coming back, quickly closed the app, and continued filming the game. I was silent on the way home. When we arrived, my wife tried to talk, but I wasn't in the mood. In the end, we lay down. She was sleeping, and apparently, since she and that guy hadn't seen each other for a long time, she suddenly tried to initiate sex. I said I wasn't in the mood. She replied, "If you're going to behave like this, sleep on the couch." I got up, went into the living room, and have been sleeping there ever since. I do not know what to do next. I just don't know where to start. My wife was everything to me. Daughters. This is my life. And now it's all falling apart. Any advice would be very helpful because I fucking need it. I forgot to mention that I took screenshots of the conversation and saved them on my phone. I have proof. The first update. Thanks. Thank you all for your advice. First of all, I have all the evidence, correspondence, photos, videos, everything. Secondly, I don't own my wife's company. She is divided 50-50 between her wife and mother-in-law. Third, I just can't sleep in our bed. I've been spending every night in the guest bedroom, and that's where I'll stay. Now to the main point. I decided to file for divorce. I called a legal firm in another city this morning to avoid information leaks. Fortunately, someone canceled the appointment, and I was able to be admitted. Immediately after I dropped my daughters off, I went there. The lawyer turned out to be a good one. I showed him the evidence, and he said that, fortunately for me, with such evidence, my wife would be left with nothing after the divorce. Considering that I quit my job to raise our daughters, and she wasn't home at the time. Cheating and cheating. A lover is above his family. We will win the court without any problems. The lawyer explained that I was entitled to alimony and child support payments. I'll keep the house, and my wife will have to pay for it while our daughters live there. He also said that it is possible to demand additional payments, as I am now considered unclaimed on the market. This money will help me get an education and find a new job. Some of you were right. The lawyer also advised me not to get a job until the divorce is finalized. He explained, if you find a job now, you may lose a significant portion of the payments. He asked if I wanted full custody. I replied that I didn't mind if my wife saw the girls on weekends from time to time, but mostly I should have custody. He said, since she took her lover to your shared house, you can demand anything. From the point of view of the law, she exposed the girls are in danger, so this is a serious argument in court. I will seek full custody with the possibility of her meeting with her daughters once a week or twice a month. I will also set conditions. No men should appear next to my daughters. If I find out that one of them is near my children, she will face serious problems. The lawyer also strongly recommended I have to behave calmly and not cause any scandals until the documents are ready and she receives a summons to evict from the house. It should happen next week. Be warned. I know it's hard for you, but just keep your mouth shut until it's over. When the divorce is finalized, you can say whatever you want about her, but for now, just keep quiet. He also gave clear instructions. Behave yourself as usual. No scandals, no fights. Sleep separately and never mess with her. I asked, why? He replied, trust me and do as I say. I came home, cooked dinner, and now I'm acting like everything's fine. I will remain calm until she is officially notified of the divorce next week. The lawyer also advised me to take an STD test and have a DNA test for the paternity of my daughters. When I asked why, he said that such infidelities rarely happen the first time. It really hurt me and it scared me. The second update. I feel depressed, and it's really hard for me right now. To begin with, I discussed these posts with my lawyer. He said that I could continue writing if I was brief and not too specific so as not to reveal unnecessary details. So this update will be short. Let's start with the tests. I passed the STD test and did a paternity test. That's good news. I don't have any diseases. I'm healthy. And now, what I'm sure many people wanted to know about is the results of the paternity test. Will I remain the father of my girls regardless of the outcome? Definitely. But I'm happy to say that I really am their biological father. I never thought I'd have to check it at all, but that's how it happened. Now about what happened to my future ex. Since she moved out of the house, the court granted me full temporary custody. Perhaps it will continue to be so. The details will come later, but the fact is that she no longer lives with us. My lawyer arranged everything so that my girls would stay with me, and her eviction was legally correct. It was ugly, but I'll leave the details for later. She was notified of the divorce at work, and as far as I know, it was hard. But again, the details are later. My daughters understand what's going on. The eldest knows that we are getting divorced, and one of her friend's parents divorced for the same reason. She saw how it affected her friend, and now she doesn't want my wife and me to break up. She's crying and begging me to bring mom home. I plan to enroll them in a child psychologist to help them understand the situation. The younger one just misses her mom. and wants her to come back. It breaks my heart and makes me feel like a terrible father. They probably hate me now. Sometimes the thought comes to my mind, and suddenly, for the sake of the girls, it was worth just putting up with her infidelities in order to save the family. But I can't do that. There are times when I think I can offer my wife an open relationship and wait for the girls to grow up, but I know that won't work. They will notice that mom and dad don't like each other, and it will only make it worse for them. As for my ex, she's staying with her mother now. My mother-in-law called me and asked for a meeting. I agreed. She didn't ask any questions, said we talk later, but begged me not to separate her from her granddaughters. I replied, you, a wonderful and loving grandmother. If you can separate the grandchildren and the problems between me and your daughter, I see no reason to deprive you of communication with them. She thanked me, and that's it for now. My ex-wife keeps calling and texting, trying to figure out what's going on between us. According to the lawyer's instructions, all our conversations go through a controlled channel and concern only children. So that's it for now. I'll continue to share updates, and when it's over, I'll make one big post with all the details that I can't reveal right now. The third update. I spent the day Thanksgiving with my future ex-wife and mother-in-law. I did it just for my daughter, and my lawyer made sure that the communication was exclusively about children and not attempts at reconciliation. Before the holiday, I met with my mother-in-law to discuss how we will continue to interact for the sake of the girls. During the conversation, she told me something about my future ex. It turns out that her boyfriend cheated on her in high school. I didn't even know she had anyone. According to his mother-in-law, this guy came from a family that was better to stay away from. As a result, she once caught him with another girl, and his mother-in-law was shocked by his actions. My wife had some other relationships in college, but my mother-in-law immediately realized that they would not last long. But when she met me, my mother-in-law realized that she had finally found a son-in-law. She apologized profusely for her daughter's actions and promised that she would not allow any difficulties on her part in the divorce. A couple of days before Thanksgiving, my mother-in-law invited me and the girls over for dinner. I immediately asked, will she be there? The mother-in-law replied, yes. I said, then I can't come. She understood everything, but asked to spend this holiday again in a family way for the sake of the girls. She added, I know you have a lawyer, so ask him. If he says it's a bad idea, I'll understand. I asked the lawyer, and he said, warn your wife through the app that this is solely for the sake of the children to avoid misunderstandings. That's what I did. My wife had already written to me and begged for a meeting because the girls also really wanted to see their mother. I decided to step on my pride's throat for the sake of my daughters and went. It was terribly embarrassing. My wife hugged her daughters and then tried to hug and kiss me. I dodged and went to hug my mother-in-law wife all evening. I tried to act like we were still a family. She tried to talk to me, but I only answered yes and no and helped my mother-in-law with dinner and cleaning. The mother-in-law, being a believer, wanted to pray before dinner. Even though I'm an atheist, I agreed out of respect for her. My wife sat next to me and took her daughter's hand. When my wife tried to take mine, I pulled my hand away. Yeah, maybe it was harsh, but I don't want her to touch me. At dinner, my wife continued to pretend that we were still a couple. She started talking about Christmas, about family trips. It looks like she's seriously counting on us to go on vacation as family. At that moment, I realized that agreeing to this dinner was a mistake. After dinner, I got up, helped the girls wash up, cleaned up, washed the dishes, and got ready to leave. My daughters wanted to watch a movie with my mom, which we always watch together. I allowed it. My wife tried to snuggle up to me on the couch, but I moved to an armchair. All this time, her mother-in-law was looking at her with obvious annoyance. After the movie, the girls fell asleep. I took them to the car, returned for my things, and then my wife, in tears, grabbed my hand, begging me to give her a chance, and began to say that she wanted to keep the family together and that she was sorry. But before that, Before I could respond, my mother-in-law just grabbed her by the hair, no kidding, and yanked. Then she turned to me and said calmly, "Good night." Then she started yelling at her daughter. I told the lawyer about everything, and he confirmed that there were no hints of reconciliation on my part. My wife wrote and called again, begging me to try again, but I just ignore her. I only talk to her about my daughters. I think the situation will be the same for Christmas. I don't know if I should go there yet, so I'll consult my lawyer again. The fourth update. This post will be short, but the situation with my daughters has worsened a lot. This week they had 2 sessions with a psychologist. The first one went well. The girls came out of it more calm than usual. After talking to a psychologist, I got the impression that she really understands my children well. However, the second session turned out to be a complete nightmare. The psychologist explained to the girls in a way that was accessible to their age that the reason my wife and I divorced was because their mother had cheated on me and betrayed me. I knew they'd have to find out sooner or later, but I didn't think it would happen so soon. When I came for the girls, they just rushed at me in tears, hugged me, clung to me, repeating how much they love me. That's not what I wanted at all. I asked the psychologist, "Why did you tell them?" She replied, "They know that you and your wife are getting a divorce. They see that you are cold to their mother. They understand everything. They see how you feel about her, and they wanted to know why you getting a divorce." I tried to get off the subject, but she said, "Girls won't be able to make progress in therapy if we don't tell them the truth." I won't go into details of exactly how she explained it to them, but they now know that their mother was unfaithful. I think the older one can handle it, but the younger one, unlikely. When we got home, the girls literally wouldn't let me go. They cried all evening. I ordered them food, turned on their favorite movies in my bedroom, and we just lay together. When they fell asleep, I went to the bathroom and burst into tears. My future ex doesn't even realize how much pain she's causing our children. I do not know how to deal with this. The psychologist suggested that they try medication for a while to make it easier for them to adapt to the new reality. I refused. She supported me and said it was just an option. She cannot prescribe medication, but recommended contacting a pediatrician who is most likely. I would have made a diagnosis and prescribed treatment, but I'm not going to stuff my kids with pills. I prefer that they go through it all naturally. At least there won't be any problems with Christmas. My daughters hate their mother now. As I found out, the eldest said she never wanted to see her again. The younger one, as always, repeats after her sister, but maybe she really thinks so too. I was shocked. I said, "You don't hate her. You angry, but you don't hate. She loves you and cares about you." To which the eldest simply replied, "No, she doesn't like it." Then she burst into tears again in my arms and soon fell asleep. The younger one followed her example. That's my life now. The fifth update. Girls feel like better. They continue to see the same psychologist and seem to be starting to come to their senses. They said they no longer hated their mother, but made it clear that they did not want to see her for a long time. These are their words, not mine. Let's see how it goes from here. It became known to his wife that the girls now know the truth. She tried to call them, and they picked up the phone. But after that, it became a little bigger. Respect our borders. Before her, I think. It's finally starting to sink in what she has done. Now about her lover. I already knew he was a piece of shit, but after recent events, I just don't have the words. Someone asked if he had a wife. I didn't know that. I decided to dig into the papers of my wife's company and found a list of employees with emergency contacts. I called his number, and his wife, Emily, answered. It turned out he was married. Moreover, he has a small child. I told her everything. At first she didn't believe me and hung up on me. But later she called back and asked to meet. We met, and I showed. She has all the evidence. Emily asked me to get into my car. As soon as I closed the door, she burst into tears, repeating, "How could he do this to me? What did I do wrong?" I told her, "You didn't do anything. It's not your fault." Then I gave her my lawyer's number. Then, Emily asked, "How long has it been?" "About a year, maybe a little more." At that moment, she abruptly went from grief to rage. I didn't realize what was going on until she pulled her hair off her head. It turned out to be a wig. She looked at me and said, that I beat cancer." After their birth, Emily's child began to have health problems, and a tumor was found in the hospital. Over the past year or more, she has undergone 2 operations. She underwent chemotherapy and took medications. She looked good, and I couldn't have guessed that she had such a serious illness. She said that she has now recovered, but she and her husband have not been intimate for the last 2 years. I felt terrible during pregnancy, and then the cancer finally took me down. I was bald, bloated from medication. Not at all like I used to be, but I tried so hard. I thought that now, when I feel better, I can be a wife again. I was planning to surprise him, but it turns out that a caring and loving husband has long found where to spend his energy. Emily burst into tears again, saying that her child will now grow up in a broken family. I tried to comfort her, and then she tried to seduce me. I immediately stopped her and said, "No, you're not in that condition right now. It's not right." Emily thanked me for my honesty, asked for all the evidence, and then went home. Since then, we have corresponded several times. We're both in the same situation, so I guess we will keep in touch. And yes, thanks to those who advised me to check if he has a wife. I wouldn't have thought of that myself. The 6th update. I've already been asked if I spent Christmas with Emily. Yes, I did. To be honest, it was wonderful. The whole day was just perfect. I have prearranged gifts for the girls from Santa. Most likely this was the last year when the eldest still believes in him, so I wanted to make this holiday special. I had prepared everything in advance while they were sleeping. The girls woke up literally 15 minutes later. Minutes later, they shouted that Santa was coming. Getting up from the bed with difficulty, I followed them. They opened the gifts and were delighted. After that, I turned on the movie, and one of the girls immediately snuggled up to me and fell asleep. I got out and made coffee. Then, the youngest woke up and said she was hungry. I gave her an apron and we made breakfast together. Then, the eldest woke up and we all ate. They played with the gifts all day, and it made me really happy. In the evening, I had to take them to their mother. I'm usually strict about fees, but I've become a little softer because of everything that's happened. The girls reluctantly started packing and said they didn't want to go there at all. I replied, "Your mom loves you." Psychologist. She said that for their normal development, I must maintain their relationship with their mother. She also warned that if I didn't do it, my wife might use it against me in court. The psychologist also spoke to my wife and told her directly, "You betrayed your husband, and it's obvious that he is the main parent for the girls. You will have to try hard to win back their trust and love." I also told my daughters, "Don't punish grandma for your mom's actions. Go for her sake." They agreed. When we arrived, I called my mother-in-law. She went out and took their things. The girls stayed there overnight. The mother-in-law asked if they could spend the night. I consulted with a lawyer, and he said that one night is not a problem. The main thing is not to leave them there on a few days and don't do it regularly. I also told the girls, "If you want to go home, just call me, and I'll come for you." When I was already leaving, my wife came out. I don't know what her mother-in-law said to her, but she obviously didn't expect to hear it. There was confusion on her face, and her mother-in-law looked at her sternly. I think she wanted to say something, but she just looked at me with tears in her eyes and waved her hand. I just left. I left dinner in the oven and put it on preheat for Emily, who was supposed to come later. When she arrived, her child was not with her. I asked, "Where, baby?" She replied, "My mother-in-law and father-in-law wanted to spend Christmas with him, and so did his father. In fact, she came up with the same scheme as me through a lawyer." I just nodded. Emily looked amazing. We had dinner and just talked about life, about the past, getting to know each other better. After dinner, we sat on the couch. I turned on the movie, and we continued the conversation. Then I took out a bottle of wine. I don't drink often, but I usually indulge in wine at Christmas. Emily asked, "Can I have some?" "Are you sure you can?" She replied, "Yes." I poured it for her. Our conversation turned from the past to hobbies, then current issues. We cried for a while, then we started joking and laughing. After 2 bottles, which is actually unusual for me, the conversation smoothly turned to the topic of intimacy about tastes, preferences, desires. It turned out that we are very similar in this regard. Emily said, "Your wife screwed up." I replied, "Just like your husband." I know that many people advised me to respond to her when she tried to seduce me last time. I didn't do it then because I didn't want her to make an emotional mistake. This time I said, "Can you take off your wig? If you want. You look amazing without it. You're very beautiful with short hair." She took it off, cried, and thanked me. We continued talking, and then we started watching a movie, sitting next to each other. It's important to note that my future ex loved it when I massaged her breasts during hugs. It relaxed her. I did this so often that I didn't even notice how Emily started doing it. She said, "It feels good." I was scared, abruptly took my hands away and apologized. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize what I was doing." She replied, "It's okay. On the contrary, you can continue. It's relaxing." So I continued, and after that, everything started spinning. The next morning we had breakfast and took a shower. I asked, "Did you plan this?" She laughed and replied, "No, but every girl always has a spare set of clothes." As she was leaving, she asked, "Did you feel something last night?" I honestly replied that, yes, but added that we need to focus on ourselves and our children and make sure that these feelings are real and not just emotions against the background of everything that happened. She agreed and said, "We'd figure it out later." Before leaving, she kissed me on the cheek, thanked me for a wonderful night, and said, "I'll text you later." I went to get the girls. It turned out that they had a good time. They said that Mom behaved like she should most of the time. So yes, right now I've just finished cooking dinner and we're going to spend the evening together. Thank you all. These posts have become a kind of therapy for me. The 7th update. Lately, there was a lot to do, so this update will be short. Also, I do not condemn those who think that this story is fake. The internet is really full of liars, provocateurs, and fans of composing dramas. The girls are feeling much better. Thanks to the work with a psychologist and various activities, they began to come to their senses. Of course, they still have difficult moments, but overall the situation is improving. As for Emily and me, we continue to communicate almost every day, but we haven't had anything since. We don't regret what happened, but we know we shouldn't have done it. Now about my future ex. For a few weeks after Christmas, she was still trying to get me to talk to her, but now she's almost stopped. As my lawyer said, he is aware of the whole situation. Official meetings will begin soon. She finally realized that I had really decided everything for myself and she had no chance to convince me to change my mind. I am sure that they will try to offer a reconciliation option, but this will not happen. She still texts and calls from time to time, trying to change my mind, but I just ignore her message. Now for the most interesting part. My wife's lover was arrested. I can't tell you too many details yet, but as far as I understand, he came to my wife's office and gave her a hard time. A verbal altercation began between them, after which she threatened to call the police, and then he hit her. His colleagues intervened, and he was knocked down. The police came and took him away. His wife filed a complaint against him. I'm sure he'll hire a lawyer now to counterclaim her for their office romance. But I don't have any information yet. My mother-in-law told me about it and said, if you want, you can meet her. I understand he gave her a black eye and split her lip, but the mother-in-law just shrugged her shoulders and said, "Karma." So, I haven't seen my wife since, and neither have the girls. Unless something extraordinary happens, you probably won't. You will hear nothing new from me before the first official meeting with lawyers. But, unfortunately, that was the end of the story, and there were no more updates from the author. Write your Opinion in the comments. What do you think happened? Next, I think that everything worked out fine for the author. If there had been any hard knocks, he would probably have written and asked the commentators for help. And since everything has more or less stabilized, there have been no more updates. Do you know how it is? When some kind of trouble, then, yes, you start writing on cheating, asking for advice, and when everything is smooth, then, well, it's kind of lazy already. 33. 37. 6. 6 o'clock. 8. 5.